what are the
concludes that the holy anointing oil of Moses included cannabis or cannabosom as one of the active ingredients.
Wasn't there something on the BBC recently?
Just last week.
What did they say?
That Jesus healed using cannabis in his ministry. I've got the story here from The Guardian. It also played on the BBC. It said Jesus was almost certainly a cannabis user and an early...
Jesus was a cannabis user.
Jesus Christ, the Christ, was almost certainly a cannabis user and an early proponent of the medicinal properties of that drug. According to a study of scriptural text published this month, the study suggests that Jesus and his disciples used the drug to carry out miraculous healings. It makes perfect sense. We all know the benefit that cannabis has on glaucoma and people that are suffering from spasticity and multiple sclerosis and all kinds of ailments. Cannabis is the miracle healing herb. It is the botanical messiah. And it's here to feed all our hungers: food, clothing, shelter, medicine, fuel, sacrament, and so much more.
Research that didn't surprise me at all. It said almost 3/4 of Americans support making marijuana legally available for doctors to prescribe. What are we waiting for? Because others won't use common sense. And why won't Congress at least allow legislative hearings on a bill that makes perfect sense? The States' Right to Medical Marijuana Act. I hope you continue to push forward on this issue. There are a lot of people out there who are counting on you. Thank you very much and enjoy the conference. And a special message for my friend Woody Harrelson. Woody, keep up the great work, keep up the fight, and by the way, I'm all out of that hemp-fed beef. I could use another order.
So when I get into Marin County, California, where I moved to, started teaching high school there in the fall of '67, and all the young kids wanted to do was talk about sex, drugs, rock and roll, and I didn't know anything about drugs of any kind other than booze. And,
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because I'd never been around pot, and here all the kids are telling me, Mr. Kimmel, you got to try this marijuana. It's really good.
Really? They tell you that?
Oh, yeah.
These are your students?
My students, yeah.
Oh, your students corrupted you.
My students turned me on. Thank God. I was a real hardcore atheist at the time.
Oh, really?
And they loved to argue with me philosophically over there is a God or there isn't, and so forth and so on. So, by the end of the first semester in December of '67, I decided, well, my kids had my back up against the wall, because when they discovered I had a bachelor's and a master's in botany and plant pathology, well, what do you think of marijuana, Mr. Kimmel? I said, I don't know anything about it except for the fact that in economic botany I had learned that it had a great past in terms of hemp and rope and fiber and all the things that it was being used for in the ships, but I didn't know anything about smoking it. I'd never seen a plant, never talked to anybody that ever smoked it except these young high school students. So I decided they had something they were trying to tell me, and I figured, old Doc Wolf had told me, he said, it's about truth, you know, and he told me, well, the only way you're going to find out the truth about pot, Mr. Kimmel, is to try some. So over Christmas vacation '67, I tried some. And I first joint I smoked nothing, couldn't tell a thing.
Did your students turn you on to it?
Yep.
And do you want to tell us a little more about that?
Well, I'd walk in my classroom and open the desk drawer, and there'd be a joint in my desk drawer, maybe sometimes 2 or 3 of them. So,
really?
Yeah.
They were subtle,
They were really trying to tell me something. So
I see. So you finally smoked on it.
About the second joint, I couldn't tell anything. I couldn't feel anything. The third joint, I'm going to find out. I took a great big toke, held my breath. The next thing you know, I had passed out and woke up on the floor.
No kidding.
Because I held my breath, and then I took a big, deep toke, and it just knocked me right out. And when I came,
Were good students?
they were excellent students. Yeah,
and you were teaching botany or what?
Well, I was teaching human biology and algebra the first year, And the second year I was teaching physics and earth science and human biology. The truth of life is what was explained clearly to them. And they all knew I was smoking it. In fact, we were smoking together by that time, because in the summer of '68.
You and the students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't see that. I told them, well, you know, how come everybody isn't smoking this stuff? You know,
Really?
it was great. I mean, I never had so much fun and never felt so good, and the next day never had a hangover. Whereas with booze and beer, man, I had some terrible hangovers, and I was so glad to find something that was better than booze, and replaced it all together. I didn't even drink anymore because I had had enough hangovers.
And what high school is this?
This was Novato High School.
And where's that?
Novato's in Marin County.
Oh, okay, in Marin County.
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
In the summer school, the summer of '68, I had a chance to teach a class in anthropology, and twice a week for a laboratory, we went down the road to a place called Miller Creek, where the Miwok Indians had lived, and we did a dig on a Miwok Indian mound with the archaeology and anthropology students. So,
Oh, wow, how neat.
It was fabulous. So these kids taught me an awful lot that summer. I learned an awful lot from my students that summer. We get to the dig site, and the kids would roll up a couple, 3 joints, and we smoke them up, and then we get into the dig.
Oh, really?
So it was great.
You know, it's funny, that one of the big scandals that you hear about in the paper or on the local news every so often is a high school teacher getting caught with marijuana. Not necessarily doing anything with students, but just the whole idea that a high school teacher would contaminate the minds of those poor little high school students. You know,
those poor little high school students, thank God, contaminated my mind with the truth that they had discovered from their experience in life. And
by the way, just back just.
Out.
Oh, really?
So that's that happened ultimately. But before we got there, I figured if I could share the essence of everything I knew to be true and factual with my students, we'd be at the same point of common sense and understanding. That was the idea. But how to get there was the problem. So it all started pretty natural and easy with the question is, are you all here? I asked them one day, and they said, yeah, we're all here. I said, well, which is where? And they giggled a while. Finally, they focused in and said, oh, room 13. I said, well, which is where? And so I brought him in to make sure that I didn't get a fair trial. And to make sure that I got convicted, so that the truth wouldn't prevail, and the people in the jury box would.
You're saying you were sabotaged again?
Second time, big sabotage.
And are you saying this guy's like a mole or something, working within NORML's?
Well, he had trained all the public defenders that were working in the state at the time. All the public defenders had come through his schooling, and it gives insight as to what we need to do at this point in time, and that has to do with the creation of a new form of government of the people, by the people, and for the people of the world. Since every man, woman, and child on earth is a child of God, and we're all equal spiritually.
So you're talking about a world government?
I'm talking about a new form of world government of all mankind, by all mankind, and for all mankind.
About the film?
Sure. Green Blood, Red Tears is a 90-minute documentary that investigates the plague of farmer suicides, both in this country and abroad. Farmers have the highest suicide rate of any occupation, and what I tried to do was investigate the underlying causes. The film was motivated by the untimely death of my nephew, James Gray Goodman, who was a farmer in Warren County, Kentucky. He took his life in 1995, and for the following 5 years, I journeyed around the country and interviewed those people who I thought were in authority, who had studied the issue, who had insights into the reasons for my nephew's death and the death of hundreds and indeed thousands of other farmers in this country and in other agricultural societies like India, in England, Spain. And what I discovered was it's a very complicated and not an easily